this is Susan Leedy, Adam Lavender,
Uh,
and we have John Goettche. Is that how you say your last name?
yes,
With us today. He is also a Carbondale resident. And how long have you lived in Colorado?
I've been wintering in Aspen for 8 seasons,
Oh, awesome. Where are you from?
all over, but I've been in Birmingham, Alabama the last 4 off seasons.
Gotcha. Alabama. What takes you there?
My family retired back down there, so a few years back, my parents had some health stuff going on, and I was ski racing, so wasn't fully employed year round, and it just made sense to go back and help out and do what I could.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about you and how you got injured. Kind of maybe describe the day it happened, how old you were, and your prognosis. That would be awesome.
I was 21 and a junior at Purdue University at the time. Um, I'm 44 now, or at least will be at the end of the week. And
Happy
I
birthday, by the way.
thank you. I had the misfortune of tripping up in a stairwell and going through a window with a code violation, falling 23 feet from the bottom of the window to the top of, ironically enough, a handicap rail for the wheelchair ramp going into the building. But yeah, I fell, landed across my abdomen, broke 5 ribs, collapsed both my lungs, punctured all my diaphragm, ruptured my spleen, bruised my liver, banged up one of my kidneys, and broke T12 in my back, and had 4 vertebrae fused together to keep me in one piece, so to speak.
Oh my God. Wow, because you tripped.
Yep. 2 stairs before the landing. So it wasn't even that I tripped very far. I just was off balance, and windows 9 inches off the ground, 7 feet high, and about 3 feet wide, and just dumb luck couldn't keep myself from going through it. So
Wow, I'm so sorry to hear that. That must have been a shock when you landed.
yeah, I stayed conscious until they got me to the hospital for fear if I passed out that I wasn't going to wake up. But yeah, it was quite painful. um, but I was able to get picked up in the ambulance in about 20 minutes and made it over to the hospital in West Lafayette, Indiana, where where I was a little afraid of being in the middle of a cornfield that they weren't going to be able to do the surgery there, but they had a very qualified spinal surgeon who did an excellent job. So,
So hang on. So both of your lungs collapsed. Could you even breathe?
laboring every breath as best I could. I mean, that was the main thing when I had hit the ground was, um, am I going to live? Am I going to walk again? And then it was, we'll worry about number one first. We'll deal with number two later. And to live, the only thing I could think to do was make sure I was breathing. So I was just focused on laboring every breath that I could get.
That's very similar to Adam's story. Were you an athlete too? Like, were you pretty aware of your body?
Yes.
Other than the trip.
Yeah, I when I hit the ground, it felt like I was in the fetal position of laying on my back, and I glanced down and could tell my legs were just laying out flat. So I knew pretty much right away that there was something going on with nerve damage. But yeah, I was fortunate that one of the first people by my side happened to be a doctor who was there for the Purdue IU football game that morning, and when he got to my side, I was just struggling to say, don't move me, don't touch me. I was afraid that he may try and help me up. And he said, well, I'm a doctor, and don't worry, I won't let anybody touch you. Got an ambulance on the way and so forth. So it was quite reassuring to have him there. He asked me lots of questions trying to keep me conscious, and I answered the ones I felt that were important. Other ones I just ignored because it was too much of a struggle to try and talk. But
That's so fascinating that you intuitively already knew you had nerve damage at such a young age and not to be touched. Like, did you have training for that, or you just were like, no, I know this to be true?
I I had done some volunteer working growing up, working with cerebral palsies and um, some other uh, some other things where they had nerve situation stuff going on. So kind of in an early age, I learned about paralysis and you know, how the nervous system works, and that just translated into, well, my legs aren't floating, my knees aren't above my chest, so something's wrong.
Yeah. Um, well, so then what happened? Like, what were some of the biggest challenges you felt you were presented in the healing slash mental, spiritual overcoming of what just happened to you?
It didn't happen quickly. I fortunately, as far as I fell, I didn't hit my head, so I was, wasn't dealing with any kind of TBI, which is a whole nother complication. And my upper body worked just fine, so I was able to become pretty independent pretty quickly. But that didn't make getting your head wrapped around the whole situation. At 21, I thought I'd had at least a game plan to my life figured out, and that all of a sudden completely changed. And um, with everything that was in front of me, as far as doing physical therapy, seeing how far I could get to my recovery, trying to get back to school as soon as I could, I was really busy. And with all that going on, I didn't have a lot of time to think about my whole mental state and where everything was with that. And I had been told that, you know, typically 3 years or so after having a life-sustaining or a life-changing injury, that's a lot of times when people have depression and stuff. And I thought, well, if I can do all this right now with a smile on my face, I'll be fine. And sure enough, about 3.5 years later, major bouts of depression, to the point that I failed out of school one semester, and um, went and got help and got on the proper medications and turned everything around, got back into school, graduated, and then moved to California from there. So I started my professional career out in California, and things went pretty well for about 11 years. And I think the biggest struggle I've had in dealing with breaking my back has been that mental aspect, and learning how to be in touch with that end of things. I know when my body hurts. I don't always know when um, depression's creeping in. So you have to really retune yourself into that inner self.
Did you feel like you started to become depressed and you were like, oh, yeah, somebody said that to me 3 years ago? Or, I mean, how did you make that connection?
It when I realized it's, when I had failed out of Purdue, at that point I knew something was not going well. I was never a great student, but um, getting kicked out of college was a big wake up call that things weren't going right. Um, so it was once I started to get help, and got out of the fog of the depression and you could kind of see what was going on, it then dawned on me, oh, somebody told you that this may happen. And I wish I'd been a little more aware or in tune to the timing of it, because I had been warned, and it would have been nice if I could have caught things a little sooner than later. But um,
Hmm.
later's better than never at all.
So you felt like the depression was more of a, oh my God, it's here. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Like there were signs that you just didn't even recognize.
It was subtle. It was, gradually losing interest in things, not going to class, not hanging out with my friends, not eating, not wanting to get out of bed, all the typical signs of depression. um And yeah, it really became clear that, you know, I was probably drinking more than I should be for trying to cope with what was going on. And, you know, once I realized that I needed help, you know, just making the phone call, having done talk therapy previous to being injured in my life, just making the phone call, I knew that I was doing what I needed to do to start getting better. And that just made a
Yeah.
big effect, just taking the step of scheduling an appointment.
I mean, you know, I have kids that are 21 and 23 right now, and it feels like even, you know, the most able-bodied kids that have everything going for them, that have these bright futures, are falling into that pattern as well, not knowing. And so, um, and then all of a sudden it's like this fine line. It's like, oh, you step over the line of, I don't really even care if I'm here anymore. Why am I here? And my question for you is, and this is kind of off the topic, but I find it interesting, is, you know, do you know that it was related to your injury, or was it just, you know, life?
I I think I think that I was pre-wired somewhat to have a predisposition to have depression or general anxiety disorder. Um, Breaking my back may have made it a little more prevalent, especially the anxiety situations. Um, but I think one way or another, I would have probably, um, whether it had been situational or a more permanent type of depression, dealt with it at some point.
Yeah.
So
It's my belief too that part of that is a lineage thing, and it kind of gets passed down, and we are kind of predispositioned in a way. So, you know, that being said, what, tell us where you are now, as far as how did you come out of that, and then where did you go with your life and get to where you are?
I came out of it pretty well, each time that I've had issues, and we'll talk about that. But I missed, after I'd broken my back, I missed a semester of school and went back to Purdue. Was there for 2 semesters before getting kicked out, and then got back in, graduated, moved to California. Depression and things like that were really good. You know, was working in corporate America, for some Fortune 100 companies, and doing well. And it wasn't until about 11 years later that my medication stopped working for my depression for the first time. And it had worked so well for so long, I didn't really even associate as being a person with depression.
Yeah.
It was just I took this pill every morning with my other pills, and everything was fine. Then when that pill stopped working, things things got a little dark. I also had an injury, a pretty significant injury, my first year ski racing. I snapped 3 of my transverse processes in my lower back and got a pretty severe concussion that had me in inpatient rehab for a couple weeks. Um, so with that going on,
That you felt like it stopped working? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
yeah, I had the injury. Some things in my marriage weren't going well, and the medicine, it was kind of the perfect storm. Everything kind of um, happened at once, and
Sorry, I have to wonder if that was a re-trigger. Your brain was like, "Oh, I've been down this road before." Wow.
yeah, well, one of the things that I've learned, and something that I found interesting with my most recent 2 summers ago, I had another issue with my medication stopped working, and I went to a program in Maryland called Sheppard Pratt for about a month and a half. Because I was did outpatient for about 9 months and wasn't having any luck getting a combination of medicines that were working properly. And this depression was nothing like anything I'd had before. suicidal ideation to the points of, figuring out how and possibly when I was going to do it. The only thing really that kept me from doing it is my personal opinion is that suicide leaves everybody else with their problems that you have, and you're the only one who's no longer suffering. And I don't like being a burden, so that seems like the ultimate burden to put on people, is to leave all those questions unanswered and unable to be asked. So it got to a point where I finally realized that something bad was going to happen. My wood shop, which is the business that I do during the summer, I couldn't even go into for fear of having a happy accident with one of my large machines. And anyhow, I ended up getting this opportunity to go to a place called Sheppard Pratt in Maryland, and they have they have not an outpatient program. They have it's called the Retreat. It's a residential program, so it's not full inpatient and not outpatient, but it was quite the learning experience. I got a new diagnosis, which is probably why we couldn't get the medications right for so long. Things cleared up right away. I learned how to set up a safety system to make sure that I'm monitoring my mental health, that I've got somebody else helping out with my mental health, that my medicines are all okay, and that I'm not relying on people like my sister and mother, who, as much as they would have done anything they could to help me, just aren't trained to deal with the kind of issues I was having. So that was a couple summers ago, and since then things have been great. The winter 2 winters ago, I worked at the Four Mountain Sports, the ski shop at Highlands, full time, and then this year was my first year as a ski instructor through Ski Co. and working part time at the ski shop too. And I couldn't have had, even with the strange season that we had being COVID and all the interesting things going on, I couldn't have had a better season. So
Good news.
things have gone well, but there's definitely been some work put in along the way.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. So you're a big skier, right? How many times?
Huge change in my life. I wish I had started skiing much sooner in the adaptive world, but I guess 8 years ago, skied one day at the end of the season that summer, bought my own rig, and quit my job, started volunteering with the program in Tahoe. Found out about the adaptive ski program in Aspen, and raced for about 4.5 years. And yeah, basically anything that I have to do to get 100 days a year in, I will do.
Wow. That's like 9 times more than I get. Were you a skier?
How many days did you get in this year, John?
I'm not exactly sure, because I made the mistake of, at Snowmass, when I was teaching lessons, I never rang my card. So I had like 50 some days between Highlands and Buttermilk, but most of my days were at Snowmass. So I was right. If I wasn't at 100, I had 90 in this year.
So, I mean, let's see. I wanted to ask you more about having the best year you've had. Like it's a balance of medication and then just self-love, practicing the work as far as, positive affirmations, meditation. Like, you feel like it enables you to have strength and health all balanced.
Yeah, and not be, my first year back here, I was still struggling with a lot of anxiety and stuff from having gone through such a bad bout of depression. And this year that was much more back to my normal ability to deal and cope with. So but yeah, and just got to meet a whole bunch of awesome instructors, and then being able to work with Challenge Aspen more regularly than just being a volunteer was why I initially got into ski racing, is so that I could become proficient quickly so I could start teaching again.
That's awesome. Let's see, Adam, do you have any questions?
How many days am I going to get to ski with you next year, John?
However many days you want to come out.
No, I look forward to that. I hope we get the opportunity.
Yeah, we got to try and get the whole Bridging Bionics crew,
Yeah,
those who've been in the program before even. So yeah, I know Amanda's tried to get that together a couple times, but I may push a little harder on that.
we got somebody on the inside now, so.
We have a couple other guys that wanted to start a group to talk about like how to change the sit skis to make them better and better. I don't know if you have any ideas about that.
Yeah, well,
Create a new ski and become really wealthy.
I don't know if you become really wealthy selling things to a niche market. I've had lots of good ideas, but everyone in a wheelchair would have to buy one for me to break even. But no, as far as new things and stuff, I'll leave that up to the engineers at Dynaxis and Tessier and Nissan. Like, those guys got a big head start. But when it comes to actually skiing and working with your own equipment, or even with equipment that you're using through a program, I honestly think like 90% of sit skiing is getting the equipment set up to work for you instead of against you. And it's just, that can be said about a lot of sports, but it's really, I think in the adaptive world makes all the difference in the world when you're having to do things in not the normal manner.
Yeah. What advice would you give anyone else in your shoes that, is struggling with finding themselves in their life, getting started? Do you have any resources that you would share, or any advice that you want to give anyone that would be in your shoes, or what you would have wanted to hear?
One of the things I was encouraged to try the adaptive sports, but just had this attitude that, oh, it's not going to be the same. And, it's not going to be the same. You may find out that it's different and in a much better way, which is, I skied before, and being 6'6" was always fighting my center of gravity. Getting into a sit ski, I was like, oh, this is what short people feel like. And it was a whole new realization of doing a sport that I thought it wasn't going to be the same, and realizing that it wasn't, but it was better. So I encourage people to always give it a try before passing up on it, especially if you're given an opportunity to. There's no reason to say no.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that's probably about it for us. We would love, John, to have you join our website and potentially even ask you if you have any desire to be a mentor for other people that are newly injured.
I actually was in a group at Kaiser, and their Northern California spinal, basically all their spinal rehab stuff's done up in Vallejo there. And they had a program that's exactly, it did 6 weeks of training to mentor people with recent disabilities. So
Awesome.
it's kind of it's not over, I promise you. It may seem like it's over, but you got to stick with it and things get better.
It is incredible, and you could really help a lot of people heal in a lot of ways. So thank you so much for your time and your vulnerability, and just doing this with us. We're trying to just make information available to everyone on how to heal faster. So we really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, and I will get signed up.